Hey there, and welcome back to Mobility Monday. So we've got something a little bit different this week, something that's absolutely, vital to our mobility work, but something which gets neglected quite a lot. We're going to be thinking about our feet. So you want to be seated on a sofa, on the ground, whatever's comfortable for you, somewhere where you're going to be able to grab your other foot. So I've got one foot resting onto my other thigh. And then, just to say before we start this, actually, if any of this feels painful, as always with the mobility work, we don't want to be taking it to a point of pain. So work with your body, listen to your body, don't force anything. The sort of stuff we're doing today is really good if you've got bunions for loosening up around there, but don't force anything. In theory, if you have bunions, go and see a professional who's going to work with you to get that mobility back, who can give you specific exercises for you. As with any injury or any issue we have, we want somebody to be able to give us specific exercises. I'm just giving you generalized advice here. That said, most people I know don't go and see somebody, so generally what I'm telling you today is stuff that is good practice, good for your feet, but if anything doesn't feel right, as I say, please get some specific advice. So with all that said, let's get started. So resting one foot onto the opposite thigh, and we're going to put our fingers between our toes. So you want your shoes and socks off. Now, when you first do this, unless you've done this sort of thing a lot, you'll probably find they're quite tight. So you're going to go in with the side of your fingers down. So fingers on their side, resting between my toes. If it feels too tight, just loosen gently. So don't go bludgeoning in, trying to force your fingers down. If that feels okay, and I've done this a few times today already teaching different classes, then you can turn your fingers flat, so they're now wider, going down between the toes, and just work your way down there. Don't force your way in there. So you're trying to get the fingers between each toe into a kind of foot glove. From there, when you've got to a point where that feels comfortable with the fingers and the toes, you're going to put your hand onto the ankle just to stabilize the ankle, and then we're going to start moving the foot. So we're not trying to move the ankle here. I'm a big fan of ankle mobility, but that's not what we're trying to do here. We're keeping the ankle stable and we're moving the foot relative to the ankle. We can try and get some movement into the toes as well, so moving them around as we go. Our foot is full of joints. Wherever we find joints, we want movement, but generally we just keep these things stuck in a shoe that kind of forces it into a rigid structure. Forget about it at the end of our leg. So this is about reconnecting with them and starting to get some movement back in there. Again, I'm going to say it again, don't force it, just work gently. Change direction if you haven't already. Just keep moving it around, changing direction, getting that movement in, trying to just loosen up that foot. Lovely. On to the other side. So start off with the fingers sideways so that they're a bit narrower to fit them in. If that feels okay, then turning them front face down to get in that bit deeper, in between all those toes, working through. Lovely. And then again, once you feel comfortable with where the fingers are, holding onto the ankle, working through that foot. Nice big circles there, loosening up. Question always comes at this point as to whether you should be barefoot or not. I'm not going to go into that in detail, other than to say, yes, the more your foot can move naturally, the better, but don't go from being shod, as in always shoes on, to suddenly going barefoot, particularly in running. If you're changing over to barefoot shoes, you need to do a really slow integration process. Even going, if you normally wear shoes, to just being sort of barefoot around the house, you need to do that slowly to allow your foot to develop the strength that the shoe is giving it, that kind of artificial support. Much better if your foot develops that support for itself, but it can't do it in one go. So make sure you transition gently. But yes, the more time you can spend with your feet moving naturally, not being cramped into toes where the toes are splayed, it's squished up, all of those things, the better. Okay, taking the fingers out there. So now you should hopefully feel that there's some more mobility into those toes. The next thing that we're going to do is try and get some more mobility into the toes. So we're going to stand 1 foot forward, so I'm just focusing on my left foot here, the foot that's at the front. I'm going to push my big toe into the ground, and you want to be on a fairly not too slippy floor here. Push my big toe into the ground, and then I'm going to turn my foot. So I'm opening that gap, and I think I haven't got my glasses on, but I don't think that's a very good in-focus view, so apologies there, not sure what's going on there. But either way, if you just listen to what I'm saying, push the toe into the ground, turn the other little toes away, so that I'm opening up the toes away from the little toes. So just push in and twist, hold for a second, go again. As you do that, I'm just going to explain what's going on here. So generally, if we are wearing normal conventional shoes, our toes are getting squished in. And what we want, I'll show you with my hand because it's easier, we want the bone, where the bone runs through our hand or through our toe, we want the toe to extend in that direction rather than to be squished into the side. So we're trying to encourage that toe to be able to go out in the direction the bone goes rather than being squished in towards our toes. Now again, if you've got bunions, you'll find that toe is really squished in. Just gently ease it. See if you can start to ease it out. And then we'll just do a hold, so pushing the toe in, bringing the other toes away. My heel's in the air, the little toes aren't particularly pushed into the ground, it's the big toe that's in contact with the ground. A few seconds longer. Lovely, then swap over onto the other side. So same thing again here, and I've been doing this for the last few weeks, and I can already see a massive difference in terms of that movement that I've got there. This is something that we're working on in Club Feel Fit at the moment, so if you're interested in doing more work on building that mobility through your feet, particularly if you have bunions, and if you feel that this would be something helpful for you, then have a look at Club Feel Fit. You can find details on my website, feelfitwithlucy.co.uk/clubfeelfit. I'll put details at the bottom of this session as well. You can get a free trial to my website, and it's block 29 that we're on at the moment. So start at the beginning of that block, work your way through. We're doing lots of foot mobility and balance work through this block. So let's do that push and hold. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Lovely. From there, we're going to keep working through that toe mobility, but we're going to try and own it ourselves. So rather than trying to push down the toe to open it, we're going to try and actually develop the toe's abilities to open up. So we're trying to stand with all our feet on the ground, and then we're trying to move the big toes towards the midline, towards that direction that the bone wants them to be pointing in. Now this can be really hard if you've never done anything like this before. You might find that you want to help with your fingers, just pulling the toes in, or if you have a thigh band, we often use these in my Club Feel Fit sessions, you can use that to wrap around those toes to help to bring them in. But see if we can get, when you first start doing any toe work, you feel like, oh my God, this is impossible. And then it's as if you start to learn the language and you can start to get the brain to talk to the toes and you start getting that movement. So starting to get the ability to bring the toes in towards the midline. And then from there, can we push the big toes down and raise the little toes? Push the little toes down and raise the big toes. So we're just building that foot strength and that control through the foot. And again, if you've never done this before and you're struggling, push down with your fingers as you raise up the big toe, and then push down the big toe, raise up the little toe, so you get that movement in there. And then can you do it just by pushing down the little fingers? Maybe now you can raise up the big toe and vice versa. Long term, trying to get to being able to move them by themselves. But honestly, don't worry if you're not there yet. If this is the first time you've tried it, it takes time. It's like you've got to learn Chinese or something. You can't speak it straight up. You've got to learn how to communicate with those toes. And then just try, and I can't do this one, but try imagining you playing the piano with the toes. Can't play the piano with my fingers either, but trying to just get everything moving differently. You can try just working on one foot at a time. That might be easier. Yep, not very good piano playing going on here, but keep working on it and you can get there. So that's getting all that strengthening into the toes, that mobility. So we want to be able to move the toes. We want to then be able to own that space. So that's the first steps on working on our mobility. We then want to combine that with some balance work, because when we have our toes all cramped up, it's very hard to balance because we've got a smaller base of support. When we can get the toes to go wider, think of our pyramid at the base of each foot, our big toe, our little toe, heel. The further apart that those feet are, the easier it is for our balance work because we've got a bigger base of support. So we're going to go from where we were, sorry, just bring it back so you can see, up to standing. And then you're going to bend your toes around and just moving them in one direction and then the other. And as you do that, think about using that whole foot for balance. So think about big toe, little toe, heel. Feel all of that sort of pressure, that support running through the feet. Keep going like that while I just move you a bit further away so you're not talking to my shoulders. Trying to get it so you can't see all the mess in the corner of the room there. And then standing here, sorry, I can't get it high enough. I'm on a different camera to normal. And now you're just going to sway around. So I'm leaning forwards and backwards. Change direction, trying to get that whole foot working. And having just woken up those toes, you should find that balance a lot easier. You've got more to balance on because you've got the toes further apart, so you've got a bigger base of support, but you've also got the brain talking to those feet. So as you feel yourself losing your balance, rather than waving your arms about, try and work through the feet. Try and use those feet to find that sense of balance. From there, you can go on and do 100 other balance drills. As I say, we're working on this all. We always work on balance in Club Feel Fit, but we're doing particular focus on it with our feet at the moment in this block 29. So you can find out more there, or just have a look and find a balance drill to go. But think about using those feet for balance rather than using your arms to try and stabilize. So I hope that was useful, something a little bit different. We'll come back to it every now and then. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope to see you again next week. Take care.